I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight and thank Mr. Soufi for organizing this event. Pretty sure it wasn't easy, but I can see that you managed to secure for yourself a very capable panel on both sides. To start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we stand on today, the Noongar people, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. It is important, after all, that we acknowledge our elders and history in order to learn from it. Now, allow me to share some of my personal history with you. I was born in Akka. Akka is a beautiful coastal city on the Mediterranean. It has been inhabited for the last 4,000 years. For the last 4,000 years, my city has been continuously inhabited. And it has been governed by many various different cultures. The Crusaders, the Byzantine Empire, Cleopatra, various caliphates, the British, and today, the Israeli government. I grew up in the old city where my grandparents live today. I ran in Akka's alleys, through Akka's alleys, I swam in its beaches, and I leaped off its ancient walls. The famous poet Mahmoud Darwish described Akka as the most beautiful of all ancient cities and the most ancient of all beautiful cities. And I wish one day I can welcome all of you here to my city so you can experience and enjoy the beauty of its people. My grandparents were born in cities and towns around Akka. Towns where their parents and grandparents were born and buried for generations. My father's father was a train driver. He was an educated man, he spoke languages, fluent in English as he grew up during the British Mandate. He and many others, during the Nakba events in 1948 and the establishment of the Israeli state when the Zionist militias purged his cities, he and many others sought refuge in neighboring cities near Akka. He was separated from his family as they were amongst those who were loaded on ships and boats and pushed into the ocean. And those of them who survived are counted today amongst the 6 million Palestinian refugees living in refugee camps. My grandmother would not talk about the Nakba, the days we lost everything, but she would talk about the times before that. You have Jewish uncles and aunts, she would tell me. She breastfed her Jewish neighbors' children, and in my culture, that makes her their mother as well. This was not uncommon, as prior to the establishment of Israel, Christian, Muslim, and Jewish Palestinians raised children together. My mother's parents were teenagers during the Nakba. My grandmother would tell me how, when they were forcefully evicted from their homes, her mother gathered her and her sisters and rubbed mud on her face to make her look unattractive and protect her, and preventing what the Israeli historian Benny Morris identified in his book, The Birth of the Palestinian Refugee Problem Revisited, as gang rape. My grandfather watched his neighbors massacred in the city square by Zionist militias. He moved to Akka with his family, became a taxi driver, and put his children through medical school, law school, and engineering. Now, I'm sharing this with you so that you understand that to a large extent, all Palestinians are displaced people. In some ways or another, forced out of their homes into different lives. And also, when you live in a city as old as Akka, or Nazareth, which is where George, my colleague, is from, or Gaza, which is Samah's hometown, you understand that there's more to a people than the flag that currently flaps above their heads. That relationship, mine and the flag that flaps above my head, there's no other way of putting it but a thoroughly oppressive one. I am a citizen of Israel. I vote in Israeli election, but my life is less precious because I just was not born Jewish. An experience in high school made that clear for me. A friend of mine in year 12, Asil Asli, was an active advocate for peace, One of the many programs that he led was Seeds of Peace. It's a program where, Palestinian, Jewish, and American youth get together and brainstorm ways of cohabitation and coexistence. During the protests in 2000, Asil, like many of us, and many of you have, gathered to express his democratic rights. In his hometown, Arabi, that is inside Israel, he marched, he chanted, and he waved flags with scores of other youth. Soldiers broke up the gathering. He was chased into an olive grove where he tripped, fell on his face, and was shot in the back of his neck from zero range. He was 17, a citizen of Israel, about to take his year 12 exams, and he was executed, face on the ground. This could have been me. My friend was murdered for speaking out. He did not have a weapon. He was not a part of any militia. This wasn't an accident. Thousands were shot, 12 more Palestinians were killed. No one was charged. No one apologized. No laws changed. Asil left behind a mother, a father, 2 sisters, and a brother. No accountability, full impunity. Shooting to kill Palestinians, Israeli citizens or not, is a violation of international law and a violation of humanitarian law and the laws of war. Now keep that in mind as you listen to the usual victim-blaming mantra of the Israeli Hasbara. Since the end of March, Palestinians in Gaza have been massacred as they demonstrate for their right of return to homes they were forcefully evicted from in 1948, a right recognized by the UN Resolution 194. After all, 80% of Palestinians in Gaza are refugees, whose roots are traced back to cities within Israel today. In the last 6 weeks, Israeli army has killed over 100 Gazans, including an 8-month-old little girl, and injured 10,000 people. Gazans are also marching to remind us that the over a decade-long Israeli siege on Gaza is illegal, inhumane, and immoral. 1 million men, women, and children trapped in what has become the largest open-air prison in the world. Every couple of years, Israeli leaders carry out a major military operation with their cutting-edge military hardware. Laser-guided cluster bombs, building busters, white phosphorus, against a population that cannot import shampoo without Israeli permission. In the summer of 2014, Operation Tzuk Eitan killed 2,200 people and maimed thousands more. 2,200 people. That's 5 times more people than would fit in this room. 80% were civilians. 500 of those murdered were children. That's 1 dead child for every one of you here tonight. Again, no accidents, and as the Israeli army confessed in a tweet on social media, purposeful, targeted, and surgical murder. We've also seen the shoot-to-kill policy in the West Bank and Jerusalem, even caught on camera multiple times. In Hebron, Abdel Fattah Sharif, 21 years old, was shot in the head as he lay injured on the ground. The shooter, Elor Azria, who the Israeli defense minister called a patriot, was released from prison after serving only half of the time he was sentenced for, while a 17-year-old Ahed Tamimi is left to languish in prison for slapping a fully armed soldier. Now that we've discussed a little bit of the context, we can ask the question, is peace possible? Our answer is of course. We have to believe that peace is possible and strive to make it a reality, for the sake of all parties involved, but especially for the sake of the Palestinians who have been fighting for their right to live peacefully in their homeland for over 7 decades. Peace begins with justice, with respect for the rule of law. For peace to be meaningful, sustainable, and dependable, it must be based on democratic values of freedom, equality, and justice for all, regardless to your ethnicity or religion. To achieve this, the whole land and people on it, living on it, will need to undergo a process of decolonization. Discriminatory structures and mechanisms of oppression must be dismantled. And from its ashes, create a unifying identity that aligns with the local culture, history, and geography of the land, and is based on shared global human value of equality and freedom for all. It is not an easy task, but sustainable peace never is. It has been achieved before, and if apartheid can be dismantled in South Africa, and peace can be achieved in Europe, after all it's been through, it sure can be achieved in Palestine. After all, it's only 70 years ago, my late grandmother would breastfeed her Jewish neighbor's children as if they were her own. Thank you.